Hi guys, welcome to your last day of notes for statistics. Woohoo, you made it. We're just going to finish up 5-5 and then we're going to be done with that. So we're going to start with correction continuity, which is adding or subtracting 1/2 to account for rounding. So you have to think like, if I'm saying that my cutoff is 25, you have to think that 24.5 is going to round up into 25, okay? And anything up until 25.5 is going to round down into 25. So correction continuity is all based on halves, and it's just whether or not you want to include it or not, whether it's greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So let's look at some of these. This says that the probability of getting between 270 and 310 inclusive. Okay, so that's important. First of all, 270 is my lower limit, so I have to go below because anything under 270 by 1/2 is going to round up. So since it's my lower limit, I have to go down to 269.5. Okay. Since 310 is my upper limit, I have to go up and think about anything that's going to go round back down into 310. So we have to take that to 310.5. Okay. You put your X in the middle, and then you have to put your greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. The fact that it is inclusive means that it's equal to. So anything 269.5 and above is going to round up into our proper distance. So X has to be greater than 269.5, but it's written backwards, so that's why I wrote a less than sign. Okay, and then this way, less than or equal to 310.5, because if it's up all the way up to 310.5, it's going to round back down into 310. Okay? So the inclusive means that you put the equals underneath your inequalities. Okay? The probability of getting more than 157 and less than 419. So this is not inclusive. This is strictly more than 157. 157 is still my lower limit, so I have to go down to 156.5. Okay? But I do not include it, so it's strictly less than X. And then 419 is still my upper limit, so that's going to go up to 419.5. But it's strictly less than that, so no equal to. Okay? This one just has one term, so it's just less than, so the probability of getting less than 63. Okay? So you have to think we're going below 63, so it's going to go down to 62.5, and X has to be less than 62.5. Okay, so since we were going down below, we had to drop down below 63 by 1/2. And since it's strictly less than, not less than or equal to, then you don't put the equal to sign on your inequality. The ones on your homework are all just matching, so hopefully you can kind of figure them out pretty easily. We'll do these because these are kind of tricky. Probability gain between 57 and 83. So 57 is your lower limit, so you drop down to 56.5. 83 is your upper limit, so you go up to 83.5. Your X is in the middle. It is inclusive, so your less than signs will have equal to underneath. So whenever it is two numbers, these are always going to be less than signs in here, because you have to kind of sandwich your X in between those two numbers, and then you just have to decide if it's equal to or not. Okay? Last one. Probability of getting at most 54 successes. So 54 is the most you're going to get, but 54 is included. So 54 is my top end. So anything 54.5 or above is going to round into what I want it to be. Okay, at most. So x has to be less than or equal to 54.5. Okay, so the fact that 54.5 was included, or 54 was included, means I went up to 54.5. Okay, so anything up until 54.5 will round down back into 54, and the at most means that's the top end, so x has to be less than or equal to that. Again, these are matching, so hopefully you can kind of figure them out. They're super complicated. Sometimes they get really hard. The last thing we're doing is kind of putting a little bit of everything together that we've been doing this whole time, all of chapter 5. So we have to do literally everything we've done in one question. We have to identify N, P, and Q. That's what we did last week. You have to find N times P and N times Q to make sure that they are both greater than or equal to 5. Okay? You have to find the mean and the standard deviation. So remember that your mean was just N times P, and then your standard deviation was the square root of N times P times Q. You have to apply your correction continuity, which is what we just did, by adding or subtracting 0.5. From there, okay, so this adding and subtracting the 0.5 gives you your x value. So then you have your mu, your standard deviation, and your x. So you use those three things the same way we've been using them to find your z-score, and then you always take your z-score and find it on your chart. Now, what we're going to do, the first 3 steps of this we've already done for 2 questions that we did in the last set of notes. So they're up here still. So we're not going to repeat doing all of that. Just know that we did that. So we did those first 3 things. Okay. And so we're going to start on step 4 and then work our way down. So we already did 1, 2, and 3 for these 2 examples. So now we're going to work on 4, 5, and 6. So if we look at this one is talking about the flag. So how many people fly a flag on the 4th of July? We already found the mean and the standard deviation, okay, by doing the N times P and the square root of N times P times Q. We did all of that last time, okay? So now we're going to start with step 4, which is to apply the continuity correction to whatever we were given. So what's the probability that fewer than 8? Fewer than 8. So 8 does not get to be part of this. Since 8 doesn't get to be part of it, we're dropping down to 7.5 because it has to be less than 7.5. Okay. So that gives you your x. We dropped down to 7.5, which is your x, and now you find your z-score, which we've done a bunch of times. So your x, we decided was 7.5, minus your mean, which we already knew was 5.55, and divided by your standard deviation, which is 1.87. Okay, so 7.5 minus 5.55 divided by 1.87 gives you a z-score of 1.04. We should know by now that once you have a z-score, you find it on your chart. Okay, so 1.04. So 1.0 on the positive side of your chart along the left and a 4 across the top leaves you at 0.8508. So our area from our chart is 0.8508. Okay. Also, it's fewer than, which is to the left, which is what the chart gives you. So now we're done. Okay. So the probability that less than 8 people are going to ask is 0.8508. The last one about the patriotic part, we actually couldn't do because something was less than 5. But if we were able to do it, we're going to just go through these steps again just because it's good practice. So the mean, or maybe we were able to do this one. Oh yeah, we could. Sorry, that was a different one. So the mean was 5.6 and the standard deviation was 2.27. And so now we just have to decide what our x is because we know what the mu and the standard deviation is. So now we need to know what x is going to be. So the probability that more than 10, which means 10 is not included, so it has to be greater than 10. So it has to be 10.5. We have to go up to 10.5. Once you know your x, you find your z-score. So z-score is your x, which we decided was 10.5, minus the mean, which is 5.6, divided by the standard deviation of 2.27. So 10.5 minus 5.6 divided by 2.27 is 2.16. So when you go to your chart, you go to 2.1 along the left, and you go to 6 across the top, and you come to 9,846. So our area is 0.9846. Now be careful, because more than, what does more than mean to you? More than is to the right. What does your chart always give you? The area to the left. So now we have to take 1 and subtract that area. So 1 minus 0.9846 gives you 0.0154. That's your final answer. So that's literally everything we've done this entire chapter. You have to, first we had to find the mean and the standard deviation by taking n times p and the square root of n times p times q. Okay, that's what we did last time, so we just used those numbers. Then we had to apply the continuity correction to figure out that it was 10.5. Then you had to find your z-score with your x minus your mu divided by your baby sigma. Every time you find your z-score, you find it on your chart, but then it was to the right, so we had to take 1 and subtract the number from our chart. Okay, that's a lot going on, but hopefully it's all coming together, and that's the last thing you have to do, so power through. We're almost there. All right, so it looks like a lot of homework, but it's not that bad. These 5 through 12 is matching your continuity correction, so greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And then 15 and 16 is the last part that we just did. You only have to do parts A, B, and C, not part D on those 2 questions. Okay? As always, if you have any questions, let me know. Bye, guys.